All right, thanks for joining us. We're back with what we're calling the Kerux Conference, which just means like herald, evangelist, preacher, which is something that all of us should be doing. And so we're focusing on evangelism this month. And this afternoon, we're going to be focused on reaching new people in a community and to kind of, I guess, define what that means. Maybe people who have moved into a community or people that you haven't reached out to before. Not always the same thing, but that's kind of where we're coming. Keith Stoneheart is with me. I'm Stephen Cuffle, and he's joining me this afternoon. He was one of the panelists this morning. If you missed that, I would go check that out where we talked about motivating a local church. Keith, James Paisley, and Steve Wolfgang had some great thoughts and insights into how to do that. You do not want to miss that if you have a chance to go find that video. But Keith, first of all, how are you? Thanks.
I'm well. I'm
Thank you
well.
for
Thanks
coming
again
back.
for having me back. I've been told that I'm better in small doses. So by the end of this today, you might have had enough.
What do you think about? I think things have been going so well so far with the conference. This seems to be a good way. I mean, we can't get together, so we'll do this instead.
Well, I think it's great. I mean, the fact that we still get to do something is huge in and of itself. But I think that this is a medium which we can potentially reach more people. If the videos are shared among our brethren and the other preachers, maybe in some of the preacher groups and whatnot, maybe this is something that we might be able to reach more people than we would have if we would just have assembled physically. And so I think it's great.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too, for that very reason. Uh, I mean, I don't like that things have happened the way that they have, but I'm excited that so much stuff is online now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many resources that are available, and hopefully, this will be another one of those resources for people. So let's focus in and let's start thinking about reaching new people in a community. What kinds? How do you get new people in your community? What has happened with? What are you familiar with ways that people will come in or that you'll make new contacts? How does that kind of happen?
Well, for us in our situation, like I said earlier today, we moved here from Atlanta, so we didn't know anybody. And the way that I put it to the congregation is that y'all know everybody, and so our first go-to for doing any kind of outreach was to go to the members and say, hey, who do you know that you think might respond to this? I hate using the word who might be a good candidate because everyone is a good candidate.
Right.
But we were specifically looking for people that might respond. And, with that, we had a pretty incredible first year. I think the first year here, there were 22 that responded to the gospel that year. And they were all someone's friend or someone's brother or someone's aunt or uncle, from the family who they had just never really attempted to do that before for all the reasons that we talked about this morning, the pressure of it, the uncomfortableness of it, but I was the new guy from out of town. I had nothing to lose and I just needed an introduction. And so it was great having the members, get involved. And as we talked about this morning, keeping them motivated to continue that. That was probably the very best way right off the bat. Since then, we've kind of had to adapt. That would have been what we like to call the low hanging fruit or low lying fruit,
Right.
And so we've had to get creative. And I'll tell you a couple of things that have really worked for us in the community, believe it or not, is when live streaming first became a thing a couple of years ago. We had two families come and visit us and eventually place membership. One family they were not Christians already, because they had caught a live stream on Facebook. We've got a family now that worships with us who moved here from another state because they had been watching our live streams. And so, the internet and what we're doing right now is a prime example of that, has also become a fantastic resource for meeting new people and making new contacts.
Yeah, and there's to kind of touch on what you mentioned at first. When you move into a new area, everybody is new to you, right?
Yeah.
you kind of get to go around and introduce yourself. If you happen to be preaching there, you get to say, I'm the new preacher here.
Right.
And you can do that for a while, I guess. I don't know when you're no longer the new preacher. How long does that last?
I think until everyone knows who I am.
Yeah.
I make it a point. I'm a very social kind of an extrovert anyway. And so I'm the guy that usually gets on everyone's nerves at the grocery store because I'm going to have a conversation with the cashier. I'm going to have a conversation with the bag boy or whatever. That's my personality. And so that definitely lends itself to my advantage in those instances. But I think, I think that's a great point. When do you stop doing that? And I think, truthfully, I don't know that we can ever stop introducing ourselves. Maybe not as the new preacher,
Right.
but if I don't know you, I'm going to introduce myself as new something. So
Yeah. And that's really kind of what we're talking about, is this idea of reaching new people. It's introducing yourself to people that you don't know yet.
yes,
Maybe with a particular emphasis on people who have just moved into an area, like new families moving in or new people moving in. Some places are going to see more of that than others, like a college town maybe. Every semester you're going to have some turnover there.
right.
A big city, like Steve this morning was from Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I live in Nashville. Nashville has, the last time I checked, it was like 100 new people moving to Nashville every day.
Wow.
I don't know what it is now with everything that's happened, but when you have all these new people moving in, there has to be some kind of consistent reach, effort to reach all these new people. I tell my kids that when we have that number, 100 new people every day, it's like that's 100 new people every day that we have to go meet. That we have the opportunity now to go talk to and be their friend and
Yes.
to show them the love that God has for all of us. And so let's talk about that for a minute. What are some ways that for families that move into an area, what can you do? You as an individual, what can a local church do? What are some things that we can do?
Well, I think one of the great things about the community that we live in here, and I think this is probably very similar in most places, is that when a new family does move into town, they are going to look for activities and things that establish a consistency. Things that they were doing before. They're going to look for sports organizations to sign their kids up for rec soccer or football or something like that. They're going to be looking for those types of things, and in those ways, whenever a new family joins the soccer team, that there's an opportunity for me to introduce myself. Hey, not only am I the coach of this team, but I also preach over here. Have you guys found a place to worship yet? And that opens up a lot of opportunities in that regard. But I think too, with Birmingham is kind of in a growth spurt right now as well. Definitely not on the Nashville or Atlanta level. Moving here from Atlanta was a huge change for us because Atlanta is very much like Nashville. It's booming all the time, and now Birmingham is experiencing that. And so what we've done in the last couple of years is when we see new neighborhoods going up, we will print out like just a one card, right, to put on mailboxes or whatever. We don't knock on doors. We don't want to bother people because we understand how intrusive that's become, and people's response to that is usually negative. But a mailer, something like that, in the newer neighborhoods. But a lot of times a newer neighborhood doesn't necessarily mean they're new to the area. They just bought a new house. And so you never really know in that way. But I think most of the time the person-to-person introductions are usually the best way, in meeting new people.
Yeah, I like what you said about the door-to-door. Maybe years ago that was more effective, but it almost seems like now that when somebody knocks on your door and you don't know them,
yeah,
it's I don't know that that's as well received as it used to be.
I know that I'm even like that. Someone knocks on my door and I'm immediately suspicious. I'm like, what are you doing here? And no, I don't want any.
That's right.
And so it should be surprising to us when that's how we're received,
Yep.
But I think too, there are so many ways that we can get out into the communities and introduce ourselves to people without being intrusive. One of the things I like to do is I like to study in public. I like to go to Chick-fil-A and have breakfast. And the cool thing about that is if you go and have breakfast and you get coffee, you get free refills all day.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, but studying in public, not so that I can be seen per se,
Right.
but that I can be seen. People will see me and they'll see me studying, and you'd be surprised that a lot of times people want to know what you're studying. They want to, hey, what are you studying there? And we've had some fairly, decent response, even with something simple like that. But I think being visible and people knowing who you are and what you're about definitely helps.
Yeah. I've even had a couple times where I've found people studying. Like I go somewhere and I see somebody reading, and that's an opportunity. Hey, what are you reading?
Yeah.
Very rarely, a couple times, very rarely, I've had people want to sit down and tell me why I shouldn't be reading the Bible. Which, I mean, that's an opportunity too.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
so,
I love that.
And so I think that's a great way. You're just making yourself available, and people in the community, when they come, if they see you, they can reach out to you. You're making it available, and I think that's going to be the key in reaching new people, because, like you said, we have no way of knowing who is new. I mean, they don't walk around with name tags. Hi, I'm new to the neighborhood. I mean,
I'm new.
Right. So how do we figure? We don't know. So we just have to treat everybody that we don't know like they're new. We used to, years ago again, buy addresses of people moving in and out of zip codes.
Yes.
I wasn't involved in the purchasing of it, but I know that you can do that. The problem is, like you mentioned, sometimes people just move from one side of town to the other.
Yeah.
And they're not really new. But that's something that I have seen happen. But I'm guessing that even kind of, as far as effectiveness is concerned, is falling off. I don't know that people really pay much attention to mailings anymore.
Right. Yeah, there's so much of my mail, even whenever I go get my mail, as I flip through, I'm looking for either checks for me or I'm looking for bills that I've got to pay, and everything else just kind of gets shuffled into the trash can.
Yeah.
I'm just not interested in the new car wash that just opened or whatever it is. And I'll tell you one of the things that I think. So aside from personal introductions from members of the congregation, is a great way to meet new people. And then, as I said, as new families move in, they look for some sort of consistency or normalcy to sort of reestablish themselves in a new place, like sports and that sort of thing. But we look for festivals here. We have a couple that happen locally here. There's a Magnolia Festival and a Fultondale Founders Festival, and we've even down at the arena downtown Birmingham, they have a gun show, and they'll let us buy a booth space, and we just go down and we just give away Bibles and the little rubber jelly bracelets that say Fultondale Church of Christ on it, And the whole point is just to if people take a Bible, we simply ask them, hey, would you mind giving us, a name and an email address that we can just follow up with you later? We're not going to bother you, I promise. We just want to. And what we do is we'll point them. We have the Bibles are pre-marked with passages that we think, hey, we think these are some passages you might be interested in, and we just want to follow up with you later to see if you had any questions.
Yeah.
And in a place like that or a setting like that, you're in a public place where people come up to your table. You're not trying to pull people in. They come up to you. Hey, what do you got here? Well, we're just giving away free Bibles. Would you like one? And then they're in control of the situation. They don't feel like you're imposing upon them or something like that. And so that's been very successful also in meeting on a broad scale, large scale new people.
Yeah, there's been a couple people who have mentioned that they've done the same thing. So that seems to be something that's pretty effective.
Well, that was a model that we stole from Royce Bell. That's what Royce does in California. And technically we didn't steal it. I told him that we were going to do it when we got home, and he was more power to you. I mean, it's a great system that he's got, and it's been very effective here. We do it at the college campus downtown, and we also do festivals here.
Joel made a comment he said that when you do that, the follow up is key. So, what advice would you have since you've done this and you've been in contact with Royce, who has done this? What kind of follow up is best, and how do you follow up with somebody when you've given them that Bible?
Well, we asked them to either give us an email address, or if they're comfortable giving us a phone number that we promise we won't call them, we'll just text them. We're trying to be as non-invasive as possible, to where they still have the control to ignore our text or delete our email. But
Right.
the phone call, you don't want to be viewed as like the robocalls that come through. I don't want to get put on anyone's block list. And so that's the way we've done it. We've either sent a text or an email and it's just very short. Hey, this is Keith from Fultondale reaching out again about the Bible that we gave you last weekend, and wanted to know if you had any questions or comments regarding the verses that we had highlighted for you. And we just kind of keep it very short and sweet, and that way they feel more in control, and not like they're being sold.
Right.
Per se.
Right. And that just kind of clarify, make sure I'm understanding you. When we talk about them being in control, it's a comfort thing.
Yes.
They feel like they're not being pushed around.
Right.
So what would you say that I don't know if you have the numbers off the top of your head, but if you had to guess, like, what is the conversion ratio? I don't want to use like sales lingo, but
well, no, I think you have to. In determining if something has been successful or not, I think you have to look at it in that way. And that's one of the, we talked this morning about how as preachers we become broadcast pseudo experts, with our current situation. Well, I think with modern ways of reaching new people and reaching the community, we also have to become market analysis, people, where we are looking at the numbers. And for us, we've been doing it the last couple of years, since 2016. And, since then, I think we've given away a little over 500 Bibles, because we order them by the case. And so we keep up with how many go out. If I had to pinpoint the number, I want to say that it's 512 Bibles. I don't know that that's accurate or not, but it's pretty close to that. And of those 512 Bibles that we gave out, we probably had a little less than half that actually responded when we followed up. And then we probably had, out of those, I think I've had about 20 Bible studies. None resulting in a conversion yet, but it still it got to the study stage of it, to where the gospel could be presented and studied, and then the choice was essentially theirs to make. And at this point, no one has really responded yet, but we know that the longer we keep at it, the numbers certainly point to the fact that it eventually will work.
Yeah. Well, I was just playing with the calculator. You're at like 4% of the Bibles you hand out result in a Bible study, not just a conversation.
That's that's the goal. Let's get a Bible study, because even if they're not convicted at that moment, in spirit, in the heart, and they don't respond at that moment, who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
In a month,
I'm thinking about, I've done door to door before, door knocking, the cold call, which always, I'm not going to tell people don't do it, but it just seems like as our culture has changed over the past, 10 or 15 years, it just seems like that's not really an effective way to do it anymore. And even 10, 15 years ago, when maybe it was more accepted, it was still a really low numbers game. Like if we had hit 4% of the doors we knocked on wound up in a Bible study, I mean, we would have been through the roof happy.
Sure.
It was something like 1 in 120 that the people would even talk to you.
Yeah.
And I've heard numbers, lower than that. And then that number that actually results in a Bible study, a prolonged discussion, is even less than that. And so it was not a high numbers game. And so 4% is really good.
Yeah. And the issue that we have here, and again, I know it's going to be different in different, geographical locations. as we're in the Bible Belt, right? And so, and you're in part of that, and so you probably deal with the same issue that we do. Everyone that we, well, I won't say everyone, but most of the people that we interact with already believe they have what we're offering, right? Hey, we're offering just the Bible, just the truth of the Bible and salvation. And oh yeah, I'm already saved. I've already got that, and so a lot of times that's what we're dealing with is that the response doesn't come because in their mind they've already responded. You know, even if you go through the gospel message and the response to it, a lot of times it's like, oh yeah, I did that. You know, um, and so I'm good, and so that's what we see a lot of here. I know that Royce in California, he's had great success. There were times where he would have these outreach weeks, and they would like baptize people that day in some instances. So I know that they've had some great response out there as well.
Yeah. So it does seem, like you mentioned, it does seem to, you're going to have to figure out what works best for where you're located, regardless of whether you're an evangelist or have some other role. And that's really kind of the goal, is not just to talk about, evangelists, but just Christians in general. What can we be doing? And so what are some other ways? Like, we've looked at, I don't want to talk about it too much because we're coming up on social media. We're going to talk about that, I think, next week or the week after. But we have started using social media a lot more to try and reach out, because it allows you to have a presence, and that's kind of what we're interested in, just a presence.
Yes.
So people know who you are. If they have a question, they know they can come talk to you. To kind of, like you said, keep control in their hands.
Yes.
So they're comfortable coming to talk to you. So have you guys tried any of that, reaching out to new people?
Oh yeah, that's one of the, like I said, when the live streaming capabilities really started becoming more common with Facebook Live and that sort of thing. Here was a free way to broadcast a gospel message or to broadcast a devotion. Just a little 5-minute Devo video. You could do a Facebook Live and then it's there and people can share it and so we definitely tried to capitalize on that early. We saw the value of it. I'd already been pretty involved with social media a lot leading up to that, and of course I don't want to dig too much into that, but to take away from the next panel, but it definitely was something that we were already we already had a good pulse on. And because before live streaming, we were sharing, like we would do those, like a gospel graphic, I call it, where you've got like a Bible verse and then maybe a little short blurb about that verse or whatever, and then you would kind of superimpose the name of your congregation at the bottom, and those would get shared around, especially with the popularity of Instagram,
Right.
Pinterest, and that sort of thing. And so we did have some success with that. I don't know. I couldn't even tell you what the reach on that was, because once those things leave, and they begin to get shared around, there's no way to really track where all it ends up. I mean, Facebook will show you how many times a graphic is shared, but then you don't have any idea unless you go to each one of those how many people saw it from the time that they shared it. And so, but it's definitely a viable way. I believe that wholeheartedly.
And so when we think about all the different social media platforms that exist now, when I move someplace, not only social media, but even just a website, like a standard website, when I move someplace, before I go, like I'll give you an example. I wanted to buy some mulch. And I know there's Lowe's and I know there's places like that where I can go get mulch, but I would really rather go to a mulch store, like a landscaping company.
Right.
And so I go to the internet and I type in like mulch in Nashville or something like that. And I look at all the different landscaping companies. I go and I look at their website. I look and see customer reviews. And so when we think about reaching people, new people in a community, it makes sense that they're going to do the same thing when it comes to their religious life, unless they already have a place. Like if they're moving from one city and they already know where they're going to attend, when somebody moves into a new place, they're going to do the same thing.
Right.
So what can we do? What are your ideas for getting prepared for that kind of thing, where somebody's
Well,
going to?
I think you nailed it. Our presence. We have to have an internet presence. It matters so much now. When I first moved to Fultondale in 2012, that was one of the first questions I asked. I was like, so what's going on with our website? Because I Googled Fultondale Church of Christ, and there was, you could find us, you could find the address and all that stuff, but there was no website. There was no web presence, and it just wasn't really a priority at the time. That because it was mostly the man who was supposed to be in charge of it wasn't really. He didn't really see the importance of it. He was still in the old school mindset, and there's definitely nothing wrong with that, except that we're not in the old school right now. We're in the new school,
Right.
and so website is key. And I think with a website, it's not just a matter of putting your website out. I think you also have to get your SEO words in there. So when someone searches churches Birmingham Christian, or those are three words I want in my SEO wizard that are going to help bring my listing up into the top three. Because
Right.
most people aren't going to search through pages and pages of Google results. They're going to check out the first top, 3 to maybe 10. I think probably more realistically, the top 4 or 5
Yeah.
websites that come up. And of those, they're going to look at a website then. Okay, is this website professionally designed, or does it look like somebody threw this together? Because they, unfortunately, people look at a website and they go, well, they really don't know what they're doing,
Right.
and it matters. Having a website that is not only functional and not only informational, but not cluttered, right? A lot of times you've got these cluttered looking web pages where things aren't really symmetrical, and you've got just stuff all over the place, and you've got crazy color schemes, and people are looking for, when we talk about sincerity, believe it or not, a professional appearing website and working website comes across as sincere. It means that, hey, we cared enough about this, and that says something about us. And so I think the website is critical. The website is critical. Your Facebook and Twitter and Instagram presence is critical. I think, even to a small degree, I know a lot of people aren't using Twitter anymore. I know there's still a lot of people that do, but I know that there are a lot of people kind of phasing out of it. I still think it's important to have it.
Yeah.
It's just another way that people can find you, and you make yourself available.
Yeah. And it really, I think that you hit a key point is, maybe not everybody's using Twitter, but some people are. Not everybody's using Instagram, but some people are.
Yes.
And if we can't do that, you should hire people who can,
Yes.
or find somebody in the local church who can. I really think it's that important. Somebody suggested years ago that it might be better for a local church, depending on who you are and where you are. Revivals or gospel meetings or things like that. They're not as, trying to choose my words carefully.
Yeah.
They're not as productive as far as reaching new people in a community as maybe they once were. And so somebody suggested that it might be a better idea to maybe take a year's budget for something like that and have a professional website designed. Have somebody, come in and do the SEO and all that stuff, which I'm sure we'll have people, we'll get some people to talk more about the specifics of that later. But when you're thinking about reaching out to a community, gospel meetings used to be the way to do that. Something like a revival. But the culture that we live in now, that's just not, people don't look for a revival to go to on Thursday night. I mean,
Right.
they typically don't. So we have to find the way that people look for churches, and that seems to be mostly online.
Yep. It's true. I mean, I think again, it's something that as a congregation you have to prepare for that. And I think you made a great point about dedicating a budget to it. I mean, when we talk about going into all the world and preaching the gospel, well, the internet actually provides a way that we can truly go into all the world. We can be in every home that has an internet connection, or we can be in the palm of every person's hand who has a smartphone. The ability to be in all the world is truly capable,
Yeah.
or made possible by the internet. And I think that's something that we have to take seriously.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to throw something up for us to look at real quick. If your website
Okay.
looks like this, let's see if it's going to work. Yeah, if your website looks like that, can you see that,
Oh
Keith?
my goodness.
Yeah, if that's what you're looking at, then maybe you should hire somebody.
Oh my goodness. That is well, that's painful.
Yeah, that hurts.
Yeah.
But that's kind of, that's what we're talking about. Um, let's see if we can get. I think we lost our video for just a second.
Okay.
Maybe you should hire somebody. Oh my goodness. All right. I don't know what's going on. I think our audio is working, but for some reason the video has stopped working. Yeah, we're working on trying to get the video back. So talk about what kinds of additional things would you put on a website to kind of try and draw people in?
Well, I think it's good that your front page should consist of a couple of things. I think that your front page should obviously have the name of your congregation, and we did ours. We designed ours with this little almost like a logo type graphic where it's got people and they're all designated by a different color, orange, green, red, yellow, kind of in a circle to emphasize the idea of community. It kind of says something, and it's something that's people will remember. Here it is. It's my mouse pad. Actually, I've got it right here. That's what we have associated with the name of our congregation on our website. It's this little graphic here. And so you've got the name that's clearly visible so people know where they are. And then on your homepage, I think you should have they should know enough about you based on that front page that they want to stay on the website and look at the other things. So have maybe a couple of recent sermons, player, maybe even a couple of recent live streams, and even an introduction video saying introducing people to the congregation. Where you say you introduce yourself as one of the ministers, and you talk for just a not even longer than a minute, but just introduce the congregation to give people the idea that what you're about in a very short, very well organized package, because people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, and so you have to be able to grab them, I think, right off the bat. And so your front page, your landing page on your website should be not cluttered, but it should consist of enough that it will hold their attention for at least a minute to make them want to look further in.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. We had somebody mention that website was so bad, and it was.
Yeah.
That our broadcast is self-censoring itself right now. I don't know. I'm having a hard time getting the video back. Let's see. I don't want to end and restart, but we may have to do that.
Okay.
I just can't get it to come back. So let's we'll just have to do it. I don't want to bite the bullet, but I don't know how to fix it otherwise. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll end our meeting, and then we'll join it, and we'll come right back, and we'll pick up where you left off.
Okay.
All right.